Chaps, as you know, it's me, Dan, and I have Colin, who's actually now an official ambassador of MANUP. And the reason being is that I've been watching him on YouTube or their channel for a good couple of years now. It's been at least a year, maybe a couple of years. And you're one of those few channels, and I've said this to you before, where when I'm just feeling a bit down in the dumps, funny enough, I've been watching your channel. It's all like
an escape.
Yeah, it is. It's literally, I don't want to say, my wife says don't say chewing gum for the brain because that sounds offensive. But that's the only way I can describe it. It's just switch off, just forget everything. So you and your fellow Sean have just, you've helped me just zone out, just forget.
I'm glad.
So there you go. So when you shared your video, I forgot the title, My Anxiety is Killing Me.
Yeah, a video I never thought I'd ever make, but literally, and it's not clickbait. I think the thumbnail is of me in a hospital bed with a mask on. Yeah. Like this glowing bright red, a bit like your studio there, just like glowing bright red. And I actually thought, I mean, I'm an intelligent guy, and I actually thought my anxiety was killing me.
Yeah, that's crazy. And the good thing is, I think because of that video, and I've said before, do you watch EastEnders at all?
I no.
Well, okay. That's
I'm trying to think. The last time I saw it, I think the last time I saw it was when Dirty Den got killed. How many years ago is that?
That was about, it was about 94, I think. Wow, okay. But now, in there, funny enough, there's Danny Dyer. He's been doing a lot of scenes about anxiety. And there's one where he completely keeled over, and he thought he was having a heart attack, and it turned out to be anxiety. So I think the people are slowly starting to see how bad anxiety can be and how bad it can get. But again, I thought that video just resonated. It just resonated. I thought it was just a fantastic video, so hence why we shared it. And here we are now building a loving relationship.
It's weird. It's weird you talk about the, I mean, I haven't seen EastEnders. I haven't seen that one. And it's interesting when you talk about him collapsing, because that's exactly what happened to me. And I mean, in about, I don't know how many weeks, in August, I'm going to be 50. And I've never, ever collapsed. I've never fainted, lost consciousness. I've never been ill in 50 years, apart from coughs and colds and chicken, all the stuff that you normally get. And it was just, I mean, it all happened at the beginning of May. So it's a few weeks ago now. And that's exactly what happened. I was just in a field filming some lambs, and it was all very cute and relaxed. And one minute I was filming, the next minute I could just feel the energy just sapping away from me. I just went cold and dizzy and a little bit nauseous. And the strangest thing, which was weird, was just this prickling all over the top of my head, on my scalp. And it was just like prickling. It was like just been prickled, but all over. And I've never, ever felt that. And then all this is happening within probably, I don't know, 5-10 seconds. It was so quick. And then I just thought, I need to sit down because I'm going to fall down. And I don't remember anything else. Now, apparently, and this is what I've been told afterwards, I actually handed my camera over to somebody and said, film from this angle, you got to do that. I know I was giving directions. As I'm collapsing, I'm giving filming directions. And then the next thing I remember, I was kind of sat down on an upturned trough, because we were on a farm, and I was just coming round and wondering what had just happened, and I'd collapsed. I'd just handed the camera over and just gone down like a sack of potatoes, and I was there for about 5 minutes, apparently, moaning and groaning, and I don't remember any of it. And it's weird. And I mean, even now, I'm still convinced it wasn't anxiety, but Sean
You've described a heart attack.
Yeah, and I think if I'd have had pains in my chest, I probably would have been thinking that, because I think that tightness in the chest is like that classic anxiety, tension, stress, worry thing, isn't it? And I didn't have that. I had pain, and I think this is where it was a bit weird for me, because in the hours before it happened, I had a pain right in my lower abdomen, and especially around where your appendix would be, which at the time made me think, am I getting appendicitis? And that was the only symptom I had that something was wrong. I just didn't feel right. And it was weird. And the thing is, I mean, people always laugh at being a hypochondriac, and I don't like that term hypochondriac. Health anxiety I can deal with. I mean, they're the same thing, but health anxiety just sounds better than hypochondriac. And the other thing is when people say it's all in your head. I mean, anxiety, fair enough. The psychological part of anxiety is in your head, but when you complain, when you get physical symptoms and people are telling you, oh, Colin, it's all in your head. Well, yeah, maybe it is. But if you tell a doctor that you've got this agonizing pain in your stomach and that you're not able to function properly and you can't do your day-to-day things, then he'll take action. Now, what's the difference between it all being in your head and all being in your stomach? He's not going to turn around and say, oh, Colin, it's all in your tummy. You'll be all right. Think happy thoughts, try deep breathing, do meditation. It don't work. And I don't understand why, even now, when it comes to health anxiety, why people can't see and treat that, because it is as much a pain, although it's in your head and the way it affects you, than any other pain in your body, any physical pain. And I think that was the different thing with this, is that I've always had anxiety, I've always had depression and stress and worry, but it's never affected me, if it is this, physically as much as it has done. I've never had physical symptoms from it. I mean, it started off with me collapsing. I was in and out of consciousness for about an hour and a half once I got home. I still had this pain in my abdomen, which got worse and worse and worse. I was out of it. I was lightheaded. I was dizzy. And in the days after, I was just lethargic and frail. I felt like a 90-year-old. And this is where, like, the sign of health anxiety comes into it, because if you look at the thumbnail on that video we were talking about, my face is literally bright red. And the flushing of my face, the whole of my head, not just my face, the flushing went down around my neck and onto my chest. And it stayed there. It stayed there for days. And it was weird, because I've never had that. I know you can get kind of blushing and flushing when you're anxious and stressed. I know that can happen. It's like the fight and flight response and the adrenaline and the cortisol running through your system. But the doctor said, I can't explain it. I don't know what that is. Just give it a few days. Now, I don't give things a few days. I want to know now. I want to know what's going on, because it's your body, isn't it? You want to know what's going on. So I made that really, really stupid mistake of consulting Dr. Google. And I mean, the thing is that if you go on Google and you've got a bad headache, and you go on Google and put what causes a bad headache, of course you're going to see brain tumor and worry about that. But the thing is with headaches is there's like probably 200 different causes of it, and people just focusing on the bad one. And that's why they say don't use Dr. Google. Now, the thing here is I went on and Googled the symptoms. So I Googled persistent flushing in the face and chest, diarrhea, stomach cramps, abdominal pain. And it brought up this thing called carcinoid syndrome, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a very rare. No, it's I think there's about 4,000 cases a year worldwide. It is quite rare. It's a nasty small tumor that lives somewhere, usually in your tummy, in your intestine and bowel, down that area. Sometimes it can come up into your chest. And the weird thing is that Googling brain tumor, there's like 200 different things it could be, but every symptom I had was carcinoid syndrome. There was nothing else. There wasn't one other condition that had and explained the same symptoms. So what do I do? Of course, that's it. If the doctor has said to you, oh, I can't think what it is, give it a few days, and there's no other explanation, then I think health anxiety or not, you're going to look at that and be frightened, aren't you? Anybody would.
I'd freak out in silence, probably. Yeah.
And the problem is that I then went to the doctor and said, oh, I've been on Google, and the doctor immediately is dismissing you and shaking the head.
Yeah. And
I'm kind of thinking that I'm being fobbed off. And she diagnoses me with health anxiety. And I'm like, no. Look, the symptoms, every single symptom I've got. I've never collapsed in my life. I'm normally fit and healthy. And then overnight, bang, this happens. And I remember sat in the surgery in tears, and Sean was with me. And I broke down like a baby, and I was really crying and really stressed. And I was convinced I was dying. And every minute that the doctor wasn't believing me and doing something about it, the chances of me recovering or getting better from this were getting slimmer and slimmer. I was in full panic mode. And so she said, well, we'll do some tests. We'll do whole blood count. We'll do a bowel screening. We'll do a chest x-ray. The thing you worried about, this carcinoid syndrome, the only way to test it is to take 24 hours of your pee. And then we send that off and they test it for serotonin in your system, which is what this tumor releases. But it'll take a few days to get the kit to do it. And then it'll take up to 3 weeks for a result. And when you sat in the doctors panicking, thinking you're dying, and they're saying, well, yeah, we can do this, but it's going to be at least another 2-3 weeks. And it's like, it's not a help.
Yeah.
And then the worst thing was when she said, when this comes back negative, what's the next thing you're going to be worrying about? And you just think,
a doctor said that.
Yeah. And you just think, no, I'm sat here, I'm a complete wreck.
Yeah.
Convinced I'm dying. Now, whether you're convinced I'm dying or not, don't say that to somebody who can't cope with the anxiety that they're going through. I know there's nothing you can do. I know you can't tell me what it is or what it isn't. I know you have to run the test to rule it out, but don't sit there and judge me and say, well, when this comes back negative, what else are you going to worry about? It doesn't help, does it? I don't think.
No, I kind of, if you'd have said that was an auntie or family member or even a mate, I think I would have got that. Actually, yeah, that's kind of sad. Really.
So it didn't help. And over the next few days, of course, all I'm thinking of is I've got it, and now I'm just waiting for the result. And so I don't help myself. You go back onto Google and you start Googling, well, what happens with this tumor? How long have you got? What are the operation choices and outcomes and things like that? And the symptoms got worse. The stomach pain got worse, and it got so bad I stopped eating. So I stopped going to the toilet, and everything was getting backed up, and I was getting bloated, and the flushing was just getting worse and worse. And every time I thought about it, I could feel my face burning up on my neck. And so I was calling the GP and saying, look, I'm not eating, I'm not passing anything. I feel like I'm burning. Can you not do anything just to control the symptoms until these test results come back? And that's when she said to me, I'm going to use the exact words, Colin, I think we need to set parameters on when you come down here. Wow. And I was just like, thank you. That just like really helps. And whether I'm a hypochondriac, whether I'm overreacting, whether I'm dying, whether I'm not dying, why would you say that? Why would you say to the person who is really needing support in that moment, we're going to have to restrict when you come. We're going to have to set parameters on when you come down here. I've been once. I'd rung them twice, and this is within about 4 days. And I don't think that's excessive. And it was just, you get the feeling that they're not taking the anxiety seriously. They're treating you as a frustration, as a bit of a pain in the backside.
Yeah.
And not even looking at the causes and what's going through your head, whether it's a real, whether something's going on or not, because at the time they didn't know. If they can't say if they can't 100% rule something out, why treat them as, do you know what I mean? This pain that I don't understand it. I was convinced I was dying. So why not look at that and try and at least offer some reassurance rather than saying, look, we shouldn't be talking to you. Just wait for these results to come back. It's just like, ugh, no. And the thing is that whether the anxiety was causing the physical symptoms at that point, nobody knew. So at least try and do something to ease the physical symptoms until the test results come through. Yeah. But even that wasn't being offered as an option. And I think I was unlucky because my head was a complete mess. And I just think at the time I was being treated by a GP who saw me more as an inconvenience. I did start to speak to another who was a little bit more helpful, a little bit more reassuring. And in fact, he rang the people who were doing the testing and said, look, this guy has got really bad health anxiety. We understand it takes 2 or 3 weeks. All the other blood tests came back fine. The bowel screening fine, chest x-ray fine. Everything was ruled out. And I was told I'm actually pretty healthy. But we were just waiting on this tumor result. And so he rang them up and she said, based on everything, based on his symptoms, based on what's going on and everything, I'm highly confident that he's going to be all right, that it's not going to be this. And you can tell him that, but of course we still have to wait for this result.
Yeah.
And there was then this kind of 2 weeks where we're waiting for the result. Everybody's kind of saying, yeah, it's just anxiety. And I think I had to try and accept in my own head that it probably was anxiety, and to try and deal with that. But again, you've got a medication route which takes a while to set in, and me and medication don't work. That's a different story. And you've got the side where you've got breathing and meditation and these self-help guides. And because we have a good online presence on social media, a lot of people, and I was being quite open about it, so a lot of people were offering help, read this book, try this course. And the problem is when your head's in that state and these courses are telling you to, I think one of them was saying, when you get anxious thoughts, just say to them, whatever. And you can't do that when you're in that frame of mind. Another one was,
sorry, that's saying, I've seen that somewhere before, just saying whatever, but that's actually just saying, put it to one side.
Yeah, it goes back to the thing about going into the doctors with agonizing stomach pain. And he says, well, it's all in your tummy, like it's all in your head. Yeah. If it's physical pain, you can't just, if you walk into it, well, not walk into it, if you're wheeled into an A&E and your femur is poking out through the top of your knee, they're not going to tell you to do deep breathing and meditation and maybe try yoga to make that better. And I think the other one was accept and allow. When you get these feelings, if you feel sensations in your body, so the stomach pains, accept and allow them. It's like, no, I want to fix them. I don't want to accept and allow it. I want it to get better, and I want to know what's causing it. And then I will feel better, because I'll know if there's something wrong, how to treat it, or if there's nothing wrong, if it is all in my head.
Yeah.
So that went on for 2 weeks. I tried everything. And I think you have to try everything, because you do feel that pressure. You will do anything, won't you, to try and make things better?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So how do you build up the strength to try everything?
Desperation, I think, leads to it. I think it gets to a point where you, and anybody who suffers any kind of depression, anxiety, anything like that, you will understand this, that some people spiral, some people are always in that state, some people flow and fluctuate, but there is always a rock bottom, isn't there?
Yeah.
There is always a point where you will do anything. You will chop your right arm off to make it better. You will do whatever. It just gets to that point. And I think it might be fair to say that I go into these therapies with a negative attitude about how they can help. And I think that comes from experience. So many therapists have tried CBT on me over the last, I don't know how many years, that I actually studied it to the point of being able to prescribe it, just to try and understand it, because it was never working. And one therapist said to me not so long ago that it doesn't work on some people. And for my mind, I can see straight through it. I can't be told how to think. I can't change my thoughts. I can't write them down and link thoughts and emotions. And I can't do that, because my head wants to fix the problem that's causing me to feel that way. And that's the only way I can do that. Yeah. And I think that's why there's always this constant search for, there must be an answer somewhere, even though there probably isn't. No,
well, good on you for keeping looking, because even me, I think I've given up before. I'm like, okay, nothing can help me, and that's it, and suffer in silence until you have that eureka moment. Normally it's when Faye's literally kicking me up the arse to say, come on, let's get something sorted out. But it's funny what you're saying about the therapy thing, because obviously we're a men's mental health charity. Of course, we're always going to promote therapy, talking blah blah blah. But I was in a conference with the NHS last week. I think it was 57 of their psychologists and mental health team. I felt so imposter syndrome. But they were asking me, like, how do you talk to men and all sorts. But even on there, they were saying, actually, some people, therapy does not work. It works for a lot of people. There's my get out clause. It really does. And I have a therapist myself, and actually it helps with me to do with MANUP. But therapy is not the one size fits all solution. So it's about
Mhm.
finding what's right for you in your life, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think even though a therapy might have a direct approach, it's like that some of the things I was trying to do to ease my anxiety during this last 3 weeks. And thankfully, just to get it out there, the test came back negative. So of course, everybody's then doing the told you so dance. And I'm feeling really embarrassed and a little bit about it. But yeah, the therapists can all have a particular approach. And I think the thing I learned with the health anxiety thing is you can get things from an approach that the whole approach might not work in the way it's meant to, but you can still take things from it. It's like the health anxiety, because that's come back normal. I'm still convinced there's something wrong because I'm still getting the flush and I'm still a bit red and I'm still a little bit, and I don't know whether that's the anxiety wearing off, but I did put together my own little plan, which is working. And it's like a 3-step plan for me. And I mean, I'll share this because it might work for somebody else.
Yeah, no, please do. Yeah.
But I'm probably 90% less anxious about my health, not just because the test came back negative, although that helps, but I've put in place some things that are actually working for me. One, it's 3 steps. One is the most obvious one, is to stop Google.
Yeah.
Do not Google medical symptoms and believe and trust in your body and your doctors, because it just Google is, I don't even need to explain that one, do I? So, and stop watching medical things on TV, 24 hours in A&E and things like that, because you will, I think if you suffer from health anxiety, you're always going to relate to something that you see. And I think the same goes on my phone as well. When you open Google on your phone, it's like you get a news feed, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's the same on when you open like a BBC News app or a Sky News app, whichever one it is, you always get a feed and you get recommended stories. And of course, if you've been Googling this stuff, then, and I still don't know how it does it, but your phone knows, doesn't it? And so it starts bringing up all these medical, and you can just tap and say, not interested in medical, not interested in these stories. So the first thing was to get rid of that online presence, stop Googling, turn the medical stuff off on the phone and stop watching medical programs. Just get rid of it, stop it, physically stop it from coming in your head. The second one, and this was a weird one, and anybody that knows me will notice that I'm not wearing my Apple Watch anymore, or smartwatch, whatever watch you've got. And I didn't realize how obsessive, especially when I feel ill, that I am about checking my heart rate, checking my blood oxygen levels, checking my ECG, checking my VO2 max after every single walk, because it fell slightly below average when it's always been slightly above average. Becoming obsessed with statistics when I'm walking and running or swimming or kayaking, because I am quite a fit person. And I didn't realize how obsessed I was with it. And every time you look and you think, oh, right, my resting heart rate is 2 beats higher than it was yesterday, something. And it's just getting rid of it again, is just taking that away.
Yeah.
And the third step is I've introduced a 3-day rule, which is everybody's scanning the body all the time, feeling lumps and bumps and little pains and tingles and this and that and spots and everything. And I've come to the conclusion that I've now got a 3-day rule, which is if ever I feel anything, that I can't do anything for 3 days, because it always has gone after 3 days. So it's like I will worry about it in 3 days, or because I think to tell yourself I am not going to worry about it is just, it's not achievable. You can't do that. It's unrealistic. But to say to yourself nothing bad will happen by leaving it 3 days, but in 3 days it's always gone. And I think the 3 things together for me have made a big difference. Not Googling, which everybody found hilarious, and Sean keeps checking my internet history to make sure I'm not doing it, and I'm not doing it. And the watch, I think the watch was the surprising one for me. But the 3 together, I'm hoping is going to make a big difference until I collapse again.
It's funny you say about the kid. It is me now. I was thinking I should get this off actually, because my Apple Watch is always telling me to breathe and walk around and stuff like that. And actually now I'm thinking about it. Actually, I'm wondering, do I own my Apple Watch, or does my Apple Watch own me?
It's like when you're exercising before Apple Watch, I would go out for a run, and your body tells you, your heart rate because you feel it thumping. If you do too much, you start to feel a bit dizzy and sick.
Yeah.
Your body tells you when you've had enough. So if you're doing, say, intervals, so an Apple Watch will tell you to sprint for 10 seconds and then walk for 40 seconds. However you do it, you sprint until you are ready to stop, until you can't sprint anymore. If you're doing weights, if you're doing bench press, you know what weight roughly you're going to use. You keep going until you're about to fail or fatigue, and then you stop. You don't. Why should you listen to your watch? Your body is telling you. So just listen to your body. That's how we always used to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that thing. I read a survey. It was in that NHS conference I was talking at the other day, where they were saying the problem is with humans now, we've got so much information. Our brains aren't designed to take and analyze and whatever I can't even remember what the big word they said, but our brains are not designed to take that much information. Well, we're designed to take in a lot of information, but over time.
Yeah.
But with us, it's just like you say, if you Google, oh, what's this little lump, or what's this, or whatever, doesn't matter what it is, you go from having a small minor headache to a full-blown tumor, and now you know exactly how a tumor starts, finishes, the full-blown operation procedure, blah blah blah. And we can do that before 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah,
I think it is dangerous, and I mean, I understand it for research purposes, and it can be interested in the right way, but I would doubt that the vast majority of people use it in a sensible way or get any positive benefit from it.
No, they don't. And so I actually run a marketing company myself. That's my bread and butter. Obviously, I'm not going to promote on it. We don't do it. But one of the things I specialize in is if you Google keywords, I help clients get up hiring in Google. And that's a term called, for the people who don't know, that's a term called SEO, search engine optimization. So most places, when they're found on the first page of Google, it's not always the right information. It's people paying people like me.
Mm.
And I run a mental health charity. Brilliant. But I don't do health. I've got a blanket. I've got a blanket ban on that. There's my get out clause. But it's just like just don't do Dr. Google. It's just a bad thing. It really is a bad thing.
Mm.
So
but we'll see how it goes from now. I mean, the health anxiety is still there because I'm still convinced something's caused it. But all the information and looking at it on paper, it makes sense. I mean, we moved off the boat 6 months prior, so we had the stress of moving off the boat. We had the stress of buying a house and refurbishing the house over about 3 months. The week before I collapsed, I'd been shoveling 42 tons of gravel by hand, which apparently would have wrecked me physically, which would have lowered my immune system. I did get a virus, which explains the stomach pains. The virus combined with the weakened immune system, combined with the kind of emotional tiredness, all combined together, which caused me to collapse. And I'm slowly getting over that.
So how do you...
Makes sense.
So how do you... I'll phrase this one because I don't mean the house concept. I'm going to use myself. So say, for example, I'm well into all of my juicing and all of this kind of stuff. I love all of that. But there was one day where I tested a new flavour or something like that, and I ate a load of beetroot. I love beetroot. You know, the little ones you can get.
Yeah.
But you can probably see where I'm going to go with this.
Yeah,
but like a day or two later, I remember I went for a wee and then done thing, and everything was red. But I'd forgotten about the beetroot, so I'm freaking out. Went straight to Dr. Google. I've got stomach cancer. Phoned up the doctor, and they're like, right, you need to come in right now if it's that bad. Refused to, ignoring the calls from the wife because I'm not, I can't tell her. But anyway, I'm going on. I was sat in the doctor's, and I was terrified. I do not mind admitting that I was absolutely terrified. And still in the doctor's surgery, like Googling all this stuff. And then the doctor was just like, okay, something doesn't sound right. Like, have you eaten anything? I was like, no. And then I remembered the beetroot. And thankfully she laughed. but she laughed in a way because I think she just looked at me of just like, Yeah, you're an idiot, but I can see why you did it. I just totally forgot about the beetroot. I just went on a bit of a binge. But where I'm going with that one is, thankfully, her laughing with me rather than at me and not criticizing.
Yeah.
But I did walk out of that. I did walk out of that surgery of like, I'm an absolute idiot.
But
And
relief, it must have been
oh
relief.
no, it was relief, but I was just like, you know, of course, all of this stress for other people and all this kind of stuff. And thankfully, it wasn't a big thing. But do you have that?
Yeah, I think
I tried
because
to word that in a really good way, and I don't know whether I did or didn't.
because everybody's always telling me it's in my head.
Yeah.
And even though they're right, I don't like that phrase in your head. I think I've got that across a few times.
It's
I think
horrible.
because it's anxiety that's causing physical symptoms, and then the more that you worry about the physical symptoms, the more anxiety, and it's just this chain reaction, this vicious circle. And that's what was making everything worse. That's why I wasn't eating. That's why I wasn't going to the toilet. That's why I was getting backed up, which is why I wasn't eating, and I was getting anxious about it. And the flushing, every time I've worked out, every time I get anxious or I'm worried, I feel the flush. I feel my face burning, and sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't. But again, that's just proving that it's this anxious versus physical reaction working together. And because I'm conscious of that, I now don't want to go to the doctors. I don't want to speak to the doctors because I'm conscious that they're always now going to be thinking, oh, it's Colin, what's wrong with him this time?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will always, and I have done for quite a few years, I will always think that. And I feel a bit embarrassed and I feel a bit ashamed sometimes talking to it, because the video we did that you referenced earlier on YouTube, there's a few people that comment on that say that people are dying, there's disabled kids, and there's this, that, and the other, and you're complaining about this and making a big deal and wasting NHS resources. And yeah, I get that, and I feel that, and I feel a bit ashamed about it, but it doesn't stop the anxiety.
Yeah.
So why not try and do something about the anxiety? If there's no physical problem, the resources are not in the NHS to help me with the health anxiety, the generalized anxiety disorder, the ASD, the AD, whatever label they keep putting on me. Instead of sticking a label on me and saying, oh yeah, this is what's causing it, this is what's going on in your head, do something. And I know they're very limited. I don't blame the NHS. I know it's down to funding, and I know there's probably in 2 or 3 generations time there'll be things that can help. But yeah, I think you're right, because I understand that a lot of the physical stuff is caused by the anxiety. I feel kind of like what's that, like a liability, like I'm a dead weight, a bit of a liability. And I kind of get scared that one day something bad will happen, and I'll be seen as the boy who cried wolf, and I'll walk into the doctors one day saying, oh, I've got a pain in my tummy, and it will be a cancer, or it will be this, that, or the other. And they'll just say, oh, well, give it 3 days, give it a couple of weeks, come back if it doesn't get better. So yeah, I think just feeling like that creates another vicious circle of worry and anxiety.
But I guess that's where speaking to the people who you trust, because Sean must be, he must know your triggers of like, knows when you're being a bit anxious to actually there's something in this.
He does. He senses it, and he just senses little differences in behavior and changes in mood and what I do and what I say and how I say it. And he does sense that. But Sean is, whether I see it as lucky, but Sean is lucky that he's the total opposite of me. He's Mr. Chilled. And Sean's been through, I mean, he had his gallbladder removed, he had a double hernia fixed, he had prostate cancer about 5 years ago, which he got through. And he just kind of, yeah, it'll be right, it'll get sorted.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow.
But that only kind of works. I guess it's the same as like with me and Faye, or Faye and I. It's just that only works if you're willing to listen to that person who you trust. As well. I think for me that's the key, especially with me with the, because I'm high functioning BPD, is when Faye's just like you're starting to be a dick. But you need to go for a walk, go and do something, but that only works if I'm willing to listen to her.
That's exactly right. It's when I was talking about earlier about there's a point where it is kind of rock bottom, and there is a point where I'll become an emotionless shell and there's just no talking to me, and I have to be in a room and I'm curled up in like a baby, and I just stay there for however long it takes, just for some sign of life just to come back of sense and being reasonable. But yeah, he can spot these signs. He'll know that taking me out to a coffee shop, taking me out to the beach, doing something, he'll know what to do to kind of break this cycle or this spiral that's started. But sometimes I think for all of us who suffer in this way, there is sometimes a spiral that is just inescapable, that just has to run its course, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally not agree with you. But that was a good call. That was a very, very good call. So I was going to say, we normally in the videos, if anybody's watching it, if anybody's watching this, what would you, and they can relate, triggered, whatever buzzwords you want to use. There's so many buzzwords of mental health, isn't there? I swear my camera's getting darker and darker, so I've got to sort that out. But anyway, yes, if they can resonate, triggered, something like that to do with this video, what would you suggest them to do? I think you've already answered it, but what would you tell them to do?
We all know that therapy, I mean, we've spoken about this. Medication works for some people, and different types of medication work for some people and not others. I mean, there was a post you put on social media just a few days ago about the mate talking to the other one about going on. And it's the same for therapy. And I think different things work for different people. And in regards to health anxiety, I think it is a little bit more clear cut. I mean, medications and therapies are all dependent on how hormones and thoughts and processes work in individual minds. I think when it comes to health anxiety, I think the Dr. Google thing is just a no-brainer. And I think that's an across the board thing. I think the Apple Watch thing, and nobody told me that one. I just realized when I was in bed one night, and one of the last things I always do is check my resting heart rate for the day. And I just thought to myself, hang on a minute, no. And that's where that came from. So the Apple Watch came off. It's been off for about a week.
Well, okay.
And it's on my bedstand, and I think it was either this morning, yesterday. I'm actually thinking I'm going to sell it, because I don't need it. I don't need it. It's a watch, and I don't wear a watch anyway. I only wore it for what we were talking about. It's like, well, no, get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself, I think if you are worried, obviously get it checked out, because whatever it is you're worried about, you need that peace of mind, and you go to your doctor and you get it checked out and the result comes back. And I think that's the point. I don't think you can just say to somebody, stop worrying about your health, because if you've got a condition you're worried about, get it checked out, get it tested if it needs testing. Once that comes back, I think that's the point where you need to kind of sit down and say, well, right, why was I overreacting about this? What can I do to stop it? Because my test came back negative. So I went through this with Sean one night. I just had this kind of revelation. I think we were sat watching LOLO on UK Gold or something, and I just had this revelation, and it was like, if I hadn't Googled this carcinoid syndrome, I wouldn't have gone to the doctors and mentioned it. I wouldn't have broke down worrying I had it. I wouldn't have had the test, and then I wouldn't have been worrying for 3 weeks about the result of the test, which came back negative anyway.
Yeah.
So it was Google. There was nothing else. It was Google that caused that. Well, me using Google that did that. If I hadn't have gone on Google and trusted the doctor and trusted Sean, and all the other blood tests came back okay, if I hadn't Googled it, I wouldn't have gone through that. So
that's a valid point, isn't it? The trouble is, the annoying thing is there'll be people watching this going, well, yeah, we all know don't use don't use Dr. Google, but at the end of the day, we all still do it.
Yeah, because sometimes you're desperate for an answer. I need an answer. And again, I think this is whatever spectrum of mental health you are, mine is very kind of controlling, OCD, immediate kind of thing. Yeah. And I need an answer. I need to know an answer there and then. And that's what Google did for me, because all I did was put my symptoms in, and it could have come up something stupid. It could have, a page could have come up at the top saying that a biggest cause of flushing in the face and chest and stomach pain is anxiety, which it is.
Yeah.
But that's not what I saw. I saw what I saw. And I think it's natural for people to use it, but for 2 or 3 weeks I haven't done. And there's been times when I've wanted to, a bit like smoking. There's been this kind of temptation and not a withdrawal, but this kind of addiction to, it's almost second nature just to open Google and type, what is this? Or symptoms of this.
Yeah.
And I think for the last couple of weeks, I've not done it. And I actually feel now after 2 weeks that, yeah, I don't need to do that anymore. It's like I'm coming off it. It's weird, like a drug.
Well, it's an addiction, isn't it? It is an addiction. It really is. Because I don't know, it's trying to work out, well, I can't work out for you, but is it the addiction of just wanting, is it the addiction of wanting to learn?
Yeah, I think I'm diagnosed with very high functioning autism, and the kind of researching aspect of that, my IQ is quite high, and I do soak in information, and I love soaking in information. I always have done. And I have a bit of an eidetic memory, because people used to say when we did the Canal Bloke vlogs, how do you remember all the details and the numbers and the facts and everything? And I just soak it in. And I think it maybe is to do with that, where I want to know what's going on. If I've got a symptom, I want to know what it is, what's causing it, how to fix it, the prognosis outlooks, everything like that. I just want to know the information. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. Yeah. Obviously, if it's bad, then that's going to trigger the anxiety and you're going to worry more. But I just want to know. I think not knowing, for me, is worse than knowing either way.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I used to use Google so much.
Good on you for realizing it was causing you more harm than good. And now I need to work out whether I'm going to continue wearing my my Apple Watch. Really, or I wouldn't mind. But I've only got the upgrade thing like a few months ago, so I'm like, oh, there you go. But that was a good call, and I'm just hoping that some people who are watching this whenever I upload it, probably over the weekend, it just makes them think a bit differently.
Mm.
I think because that's the main thing. I think health anxiety is one of those things. I don't know. It's just one of those things that is just so easily brushed off. And that term hypochondriac, I've not heard that term in such a long time. But that's such a it's a degrading word. It really is.
Mm.
I really do. So yeah.
I think it's one of those words that just has a stigma attached to it, because you always remember an auntie when you were a kid. Oh, she's a hypochondriac. There's always something wrong with her. And you I don't like that. It's like you say, I think there's something bad about that. I know health anxiety is the same thing, but it just, yeah. And I think I'm not going to babble on. I just think that it surprised me as an intelligent man. It surprised me how it hit me. And I feel it's like when you get kind of caught up in a scam and somebody scams you and you feel a bit daft for being scammed. How did I fall for that? And I just feel a bit like that. And how did I fall? How did I let my anxiety trick me into thinking that I had this horrible disease and actually create physical symptoms? You can actually feel and see the symptoms. How did I fall for that?
Yeah.
And I think it's something that it's not easy to warn people against. I think it's something that people will go through and then come out of it at the other end. I mean, it's probably done me, the positive for me is it's done me a favor, because I've got this 3-step plan now that I can use to try and stop it happening again in future. But yeah, weird.
Yes, but people are weird. We're all weird, but I think that the key is just to listen. Do you know what? Just listen. You don't need to understand it.
Mm.
Just listen. If you're going to call somebody, I'm going to be quite harsh here, but if you're going to say that you're a friend of somebody, then just be their friend. You're not their doctor. You're not their doctor. You're not their counselor. Just be their mate and listen. You don't need to understand it, and you can. I think it's totally and utterly fine to just think to yourself, this person is off their head. Actually, as long as you're still their mate, it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't.
But
and talking. I mean, away from talking therapy, just talking to a mate I've tried every medication. I've tried every talking therapy, every other kind of psychological therapy. The thing that helps me most when I'm really bad is talking to somebody, even if it's Sean, it could be you, it could be another friend, sitting and talking for just an hour.
Yeah.
And the subject might not all, it might start about that, but it might just go off into other things. But after that hour, I feel so much better than any medication or any tablet. And I know it's different for different people.
Yeah.
But it's exactly right what you said.
Yeah. Well, if it works for you, it's not wrong.
No.
End of. And I stand quite firm on that. And yeah, that's it. We don't need to just jump to the most extreme stuff. Like, I don't need to say, oh Colin, I'm really, really depressed at the minute, blah blah blah. But I would never say that. That's just not my terminology. But I would say, you know, I'm having a really shit day today, mate. Same outcome, different way of getting there. But anyway, that's probably a different video. Yeah, so that was a really good video. Thank you. Let me hit that record button. Bear with me 1 second. Where are we?